I thought as we're thinking kind of a strategic level, I'd like to give you a quick heads up on what the technology trends within UCL, things which are really happening within UCL and are likely to influence us over the next 3 years. I'll try and link into some of the things that Roz was saying there. The first one is what we call an integrated and strategic use of Moodle. As we know, this year for the first time, all programmes should have a Moodle course attached to it, all modules should have a Moodle course attached to it. Now, I think that's really important for the university. This is a kind of a traditional research-led university, but I think what this has done is it created a new dynamic between ourselves and the students. Because instead of before where we had, should we have resources on or not, now resources should be there, and what students will be looking for is content and consistency. They'll be looking for that from us. Also this year we've got Moodle 2, which will be rolled out over the summer, and it's going to have a quite a big impact across the campus. It's going to look better, it's going to have a richer emphasis on communications. We currently think of Moodle as a place where we kind of dump files, but actually the new versions of Moodle is much more about communications, interaction, activity. For example, the quiz engine within Moodle 2 will be much richer, we can do more things with it. There's also a new kind of approach within Moodle 2 for mobile provision, so people can access it through their smartphones, their iPhones, tablets and all things like that. Assessment. We've already seen a real change in assessment over the last 2 years, and that's a move towards digital assessment, in the sense that we've been using Turnitin now as become increasingly mainstream, Turnitin for plagiarism detection. But it also means that the students are now submitting in a digital format, which gives us kind of potential there. We get systems for handling those kind of submissions. We're also seeing assessment changing slightly as well in terms of using Moodle quizzes for assessments, for both formative quizzes or self-test type quizzes or diagnostic quizzes, but also increasingly for summative quizzes, for proctored, for invigilated exams, where the quizzes count for a certain percentage of the marks. And what we're kind of looking for, I guess, we're moving towards this digitalisation. What we'd quite like to see is a kind of move towards more acceptance of other kind of digital formats for assessment. I mean, so it's moving away generally from the 3-hour exam. So within just that kind of move towards digital assessment, there's all sorts of potentials there over the next 3 years. Media is another area which UCL has kind of changed quite remarkably. Who would have guessed a couple of years ago that UCL would become a media-rich university? But we have done. We're now getting huge use of lecture casts, where people are recording lectures and putting that out for students. Now that, in a sense, might be regarded as a fairly kind of passive technology, but it means that students can engage with the material in a much richer way. They can go back and look at it again, they can discuss it with colleagues, they can go and revise particular areas, they can raise questions in that way. We're also moving to the idea of personal capture, where using the same technologies, people can sit at their own laptop and record things immediately for the students to look at later. I'll come back to that in a second, because I think that's a lot of kind of rich pedagogical nuances for us. And of course, mobile media mentioned that. Distance learning CPD, I mean, that's growing at a rate across the campus that we're finding it difficult to keep up with. It's happening everywhere, it's popping up all over the place. People want to redevelop existing courses into a distance learning format for kind of obvious reasons. But that does involve a rethinking of delivery, which is, distance learning is quite different from face-to-face. And I think that will have an impact on blended learning, where we will see all this technology used for more online activities and richer resources to some of the activity that Ross was talking about, to actually do this using the technology. And moving beyond what we might call the basic provision of the VLE, which is kind of files and things like that. And even some people, even here at UCL, are talking about this phrase, magical phrase from the US called flipping. And what that means is when you have all these resources online, do you need the students to come in and do the conventional stuff? And the answer is, we can maybe be able to start to change some of these things. So if the students can learn about a lot of the subject, a lot of the content stuff online, when you come into the classroom, you have more active engagement with the students, and more engagement with the tutors and with each other. And of course, helping that as well is we've had a big growth also in classroom technologies. Many of the classrooms here are now media rich. You've seen them work with all these kind of projectors and stuff like that, so you can bring media into the classroom. And also we have quite a lot of use of clickers, so sort of little not like that, but little handheld devices for doing ad hoc voting as you move along. So these for, as I say, quite a traditional university, it's a very rich media and digital environment we're in. And this will consolidate and grow over the next 3 years. Just going to pick up one or two of those things in a little bit more detail. Moodle, for example. As I say, there's a demand now from students to have more consistency. So we're now talking about developing departmental templates. So the department, across the programme, across the department, has a much clearer idea of what the online provision will be, enhancing the look and feel, usability. I believe this needs a kind of strategic approach across programmes so that we have a kind of consistent look. As part of that process, we at DLTS are providing more support for your teaching, or for your teaching administrators. We're trying to increase their skills in digital literacy and increase their awareness of teaching and learning design. We're putting a group of them, for example, through our programme for learning technology. So they can provide a richer level of support for that kind of online area. Moodle 2, as it comes along, Moodle 2 will be available for its next academic year. The emphasis is very much in communications in Moodle 2. Again, trying to move away from the kind of content-based idea of technology to something where it's much more interactive. We find a richer way of communicating with students, and also things like using forums where we can use online discussion. The sort of discussion that Ros was talking about earlier on can be done online. And that's just as valuable for us in this kind of face-to-face university, because people can do online discussion online and then bring that back into things like tutorials and labs and so on. Moodle also has a kind of rich way of providing material beyond the just sort of like pages of links. On electronic reading lists, again, we'll see this over the next 3 years growing. Again, to be much more mainstream across our courses, because it partly because it avoids the risk of copyright problems, and again, this stuff online for mobile. Okay, media. Media's been a remarkable success here at UCL. It's absolutely transforming potential here. We've got lecture recording, not this one here, because this is obviously a camera, but the lecture rooms, so the lecture spaces who have lecture casting installed, it means that you simply put on a microphone and use your lecture. It's very easy to use, incredibly popular with students. Students love having this material available. And of course, here at UCL, we're now getting lots and lots of material. We've got hundreds of hours, if you like, of teaching material now available online. And it provides all sorts of ways to provide richer feedback to for the students. We're looking at ways, for example, the students, we can identify hotspots where the students are looking at the online material, to leave questions and have a kind of more interaction after the lecture. Moodle allows much easier embedding of stuff like YouTube. YouTube used to be famous for keyboard cats and skateboarding dogs, but now is incredibly rich in terms of academic content and provides us a new way of looking at some of our academic areas. This is something we can either produce ourselves or use the open source resources out there. Personal capture is really interesting. Again, this is what I mentioned earlier. This was using the laptop for doing your own kind of mini presentation. So you're not really here in the room, just sitting here looking at the camera and recording. Now, there's been some research. We're piloting this service at the moment, and there's still kind of really interesting things going on there. Not here in UCL, but some of the other places are doing this, they're finding that the students, the staff are using this, they're creating mini tutorials. So before the students go into a lab or go into a tutorial or go into a class, you can provide a little bit of information for them before. It's very quick to do. And the students don't really mind the fact that it's quite ad hoc, it's quite informal, they quite like that kind of side of it. And the other thing about personal captures, again, quite a nice idea, is to provide richer feedback for students. An example was given, I was looking at this yesterday, was a lecturer who, providing feedback for exams, record a short piece to screen. Right? Now, in a sense, this is kind of generic. It could go for 100 or 150 students, but it's also quite personal. The idea that the lecturer sitting down and going through and giving feedback to the individual is quite appreciated by the students. And it's remarkably easy. It can be done ad hoc on the fly. And then just a little bit about distance learning. As I said earlier on, it's incredibly important across the campus and growing all the time. It requires a fundamental redesign of teaching and learning, and you need some kind of specialist input, either from other people with experience or people like ourselves. Things like tutor support and assessment in particular requires quite a big rethink. We need things like more visible online activities. We can use Moodle-based discussion. That's things that like the OU do for their distance learning. But these are the sort of things we can think about. We can simply use the lecture cast and personal capture type of technologies we use to personalise learning, provide a human presence through our courses. Some of you may be aware of Blackboard Collaborate. That's a virtual classroom that we're now piloting. We can use that again to support distance learning or to just support students who can't easily get together to one place. It's a real-time virtual classroom, so you can have a tutor of the students there, interacting by voice or by clicking or by text. And I believe that this distance learning, as well as providing kind of an outreach for the university, also will eventually impact on conventional teaching, because the methods that we develop through here also apply equally to our students here on campus. And that's all I want to say about that. Any questions? No? Okay. If you want to see any of this stuff, by the way, I'll hang around after here and I can show you the stuff online. It's just some of the stuff is absolutely great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clive.